Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's class. It is part 2 of Sunset Studies in Gouache, and it's been a couple weeks since part 1. I unfortunately caught the COVID this past week, so I'm almost fully recovered now. This is the first time I'm really using my voice for an extended period of time. Hopefully it'll hold up without too much throat clearing. Yeah, tonight's class is part 2, and if you were not able to join us for part 1, you can find that class on YouTube under the title Artist Loft Sunset Studies in Gouache Part 1. And I'll just review supplies and we'll get started here. Go ahead and switch to my tabletop view. So this was the finished product that we're aiming towards. There's something similar here. Don't forget to tag your work with those hashtags, make it with Michael's or Michael's classes, and follow me on Instagram like Jimena, our lovely moderator, already mentioned. And here's a couple of my business cards with some of my professional artwork on it if you want to check me out online or check out my website. It's adrianhodge.com. I'm on Facebook, Adrian Hodge Fine Art. We're actually not using Artist Loft Gouache this evening since it has recently come to light that Michaels will no longer be carrying the Artist Loft brand gouache, but if you have the Artist Loft brand gouache, then that's totally fine. But we started out 2 weeks ago using another brand that is available for purchase at Michael's, and that's the Sennelier or Savoir Faire brand. So that's the kind of gouache that I was using in part 1 of this class, and I just realized I've got another brand here in my bucket that I'm gonna pull out and set aside because I dumped them back in there. Okay, so and then I've got the Artist Loft watercolor paintbrushes, the 10 set, and one little rogue item or another rogue item I'm using in addition to the other brand of gouache is I've got an Artist Loft acrylic fine liner brush here, just because I accidentally left the fine liner brush in the Artist Loft watercolor set at my studio. So do the classes from my home studio since my internet has never really ever been the best up there at my studio. If my regulars were wondering why I don't teach at my studio anymore. You might want an Artist Loft sketching pencil and eraser on hand, but we're kind of past that point. That point in the process right now, but just good to have a pencil and eraser on hand. So I went ahead and grabbed mine. Also at the end of our painting, or maybe towards the end, you might want to erase your pencil lines if they're getting in your way, or if they're still visible, you can erase them. But the gouache is so opaque, it should be covering up those pencil lines. You're going to want plastic palette with wells in it, and you've probably got the kind with the 10 wells, and I just have a different kind here, but it works exactly the same. You'll want a couple of water glasses. I always like to have 2 when I'm painting so that I can rinse my light colors in one and my dark colors in another. That way my water doesn't get too yucky too fast. You'll want some paper towels. You will want your tape, your masking tape or painting tape if you didn't if you peeled it off of the table and you need to re-tape it down. And I think that is everything as far as supplies. It also doesn't hurt to have your sketchbook on hand if you still have that from last week. If you're ever struggling with painting anything, then taking a break and sketching it for a little bit is always a good idea. And I actually pulled my watercolor paper out of the watercolor pad. So I'm going to tape it down to my table in just a bit. But since I have it loose, I'll just show that's the Artist Loft watercolor 12 by 18 inch. I think I misquoted last week and said it was 11 by 17 because the cover was face down on my desk. So since I tore that page out, all I'm going to do is just tape the edge of the paper down to the desk a little bit. That way it doesn't buckle too much, because when it's on the block, you don't really have to worry about that as much. So if you peeled yours off the block to get to a page underneath for any reason like I did, then we're just going to re-tape it down to the table, even though we've already taped it within all of our little study frames here. Going to keep it from buckling. Any questions about supplies before I move on?
Not so far.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm gonna do something I don't usually do right now, just since what we're doing tonight is kind of you know, just follow along here, and we're going to be painting all together. I'm going to put on some light music because I just learned how to share my audio so that the music will play kind of under the radar, although I realized I haven't done that. I haven't changed my settings. Never mind, I'm not going to do that. All right, I thought that might be nice. Oh, and I didn't mention, so forget it. I'm not playing music. Maybe I'll try that next time. Maybe there's like a reason I'm not supposed to do that too, but I thought it might be nice. Here are the reference photos that we're using. We numbered them last week. So number 1, this is number 2, number 3, number 4. So in part 1 of the class, when we did some little sketching off to the side, folks asked me to number them so that we were following a specific order here. So that was the little thumbnail sketches that we did last time to get started. And yeah, I just numbered them. Okay. So let me go ahead and reset up my palettes. Where we left off, we were just going step by step through these colors and starting to lay down our underpainting and starting to build up some layers. So all we did was the first wash of blue on the skies, and we're working our way from the background forward. So we're starting with the color that is the farthest back in the image, and then working our way towards the color that is the most in front. So the color that's underneath in all of these images, the color that would be on the bottom or the farthest back is that blue sky. And then all of our sunset colors are going to be stacked on top of that blue. And the reason why it's good to do the blue first and let it dry a little bit is because a lot of these skies have orange and yellow in them, and those warm colors, when they mix with the blue, well, when the yellow mixes with the blue, it's going to give us green, and when the orange that we're going to make mixes with the blue, that's going to give us brown. So I mentioned last week that even though I'm not doing any color theory in this class and it's very step by step, it's going to be impossible not to run into a lot of color theory here as we go, because we're working with all the colors of the rainbow in the sunset. So it's good to let that blue dry so that we don't end up with green or brown in our sky. And then for the very last thing, oh, I forgot to mention there is one other supply that we need to have on hand, and that is our black illustration pens. So I had the set with the 0.3, 0.5, and 0.1 on the supply list. And so you're going to want those on hand so that we can, at the very end, add some final details like to these leaves and maybe some of the fine lines that are sticking up in the silhouette of our landscapes, like these little power lines. That might be easier to do with a pen than with your fine liner brush. It can be done with a fine liner brush, but the brush pen will definitely make that easier for us. All right, so the next color that I see stacked on top of the blue in all of these sunset images are, we've got a pink going. And so that would have been fine to continue to do while we had our blue still wet in part one, because when blue mixes with red or pink, it's just going to give us a red violet. So, and we kind of played around with the colored blue that we made last time. So I've still got my colors dried up here. We used kind of more of a turquoise blue and then more of a cobalt blue, and just mix them together to see what kind of blue that we liked the best. And we're not really worried too much, or I'm not really worried too much about matching colors perfectly in this class, because exaggerating the colors that we see in a sunset sky will give us something interesting every time. So just, you know, kind of play around with your blues that you're mixing here, and don't worry about, you know, perfectly matching the blue that you're seeing in the photograph. So if you don't already have a few different blues mixed up, we'll go ahead and do that together now. So I believe I just used a primary blue and then a turquoise blue. And I'm just adding water to that, and we're really watering it down. So you'll even, you know, take some of your water and just keep dripping it. Like I'm just dipping my paintbrush in the water and just pulling out drops of water and making a little puddle of this blue. So we really want to water it down. The beautiful thing about gouache is that we can treat it like watercolor, or we can treat it you know, more directly like acrylic paint. All I'm doing is dripping water into, I just didn't want to drip it so far that I dripped it on the paper. I noticed somebody said I was doing something off screen. I'm just dripping water, doing exactly what I described. Taking water out of my water cup and dripping it into the gouache to make a nice little puddle. All right, and then I'm going to mix those two blues together so that I can get something of an interesting blue going. And then really I'm just gonna do another layer of blue, because I kind of want it to be wet whenever I add this pink. Or, you know, we also added it kind of thin, and so we can start to build that up. We also want to kind of fade from a darker blue to a lighter blue from the top of these skies. So all of these skies have a little bit of keyhole blue peeking in, you know, towards the horizon lines, but up at the top of the image frame, the blue is a little bit darker than the blue that we see that's peeking through in the keyhole of the clouds. So just freshening that up a little bit so that we have a little bit of a deeper blue, so we have a bit of a gradient happening as they fade down. And you can see that happening in all of these images, except for one where there's not quite as much blue sky showing, and that would be the one that we labeled excuse me, number 3. That one doesn't have a whole lot of blue peeking through. It's really more of like a deep purple, but we still put that blue down in number 3 in part 1, because we can always cover that up with a deep purple. All right, so Just realized I'm maybe in a little bit, oh no, I'm not in a different order here. I just didn't sketch in my little triangle of lake and number 4 there, so I got confused for a second. Okay, so once we start adding all these other colors to our sunset, we're not gonna go back and put any more of this blue. So if you wanted to add a little bit of a thicker version of this color now, that would be okay. I'm gonna go ahead and do that, even though I told us to water it down. Just at the very top anyway. I'm gonna use it a little more direct. So I'm gonna let it kind of mix in with the water a little bit on my brush. And I just kind of mixed those 2 or 3 blues that I had together a little bit there. Go ahead and put the blue at least at the very top of the sky in nice and thick. So really the only reason to start with the wash was just to get kind of comfortable. And if you're comfortable going really thick with the gouache all the way through this process, then by all means just know that once you put it on nice and thick like this, it's harder to take it off. Or you really can't. I mean, you can grab it out with a paper towel really quickly, but it's pretty thick when you use it directly. So I'm really just using it at the top of the sky. You want to keep your brush strokes horizontal, even whenever you're painting into an area that's sort of diagonal like this. That way you're giving the optical illusion that the person is looking at something that is all connected and the sky is all connected together. So the more we make our brush strokes uniform, the more we're going to create that optical illusion. And then this one that has the trees coming into the sky, number 4, it's the only one that's really got those trees like that. We can go ahead and just fill in that entire area because we don't want to have to paint keyholes of blue in between there. Just make sure your blue is slightly fading from a darker blue to a lighter blue as it comes down. And we're keeping those brush strokes horizontal. And the best thing about doing a study like this is that we're not focusing on doing 4 studies. The best thing about doing 4 of these at once is that it's easy to not overwork any of them because we can bounce around from one to the next. So number 2 has a lot of blue sky and it fades down to this lighter blue. We definitely want this one to dry before we add that yellow at the bottoms. We don't want to turn this sky into green. It's the one color we tend to not see in the sky. Although they say you can sometimes see a green flash when the sun is just going over the horizon. I actually have seen it once or twice myself. on a really clear evening when you're looking at a panoramic view. Sometimes it's very quick, but pretty cool how all of the colors of the light spectrum are represented in the sunset, even the green if you're looking for it. It's just not a color that gets stretched out across the sky. All right, so there's our blue. And let's go ahead and make our pink. And then we're gonna make a yellow. And we're gonna make this creamy peach color. So we'll go ahead and make those at the same time. So to make pink, we just need our red and our white. Locating my white gouache, probably because it's the white that I use more than anything else. As a cloud painter, you use a lot of white. Oh man, I'm running really low on it too. There we go. I found another one. I wasn't looking very hard. It was right there. All right, so you can use a palette knife to mix your colors if you have one handy, since the gouache is nice and thick, or you can use just a small paintbrush. I'm going to take some of my white to a separate area on my tray so that I'm not contaminating all of my white with that red to make a pink. And just going to get a little bit of water going here because my white came out really thick.
Adrian, we have a couple of questions here.
Okay.
So one of them is, if you have regular watercolors, is there a wash medium you can add to the watercolors?
I mean, you can just water down. Yeah, watercolor is a bit different from gouache, especially when it comes to, what we're doing tonight with the sky. If I was painting this sky in watercolor, I would be doing a lot of things differently. Having that white gouache really is a game changer, since white is the one color that is typically left out of watercolor sets. And since it's a sunset studies in gouache class, I am gonna just decline to go into that right now, just because it would just be a whole nother animal. But we've got plenty of other classes that I've done in this series that focus on watercolor. I've got another one coming up next month that will include watercolor and landscapes, painting a figure into a landscape. So yeah, but since it's a gouache class, that's kind of a hard question to go too deeply into.
Fair enough. So two other questions. What kind of tape are you using on that paper, to not damage it?
I'm using the Artist Loft painter's tape. So it comes in a lot of different colors, and I just have the cream colored one. You could use masking tape as well. It really depends how much water gets underneath the tape, whether or not it will damage the paper. So, just trying not to let water get underneath it is the main issue there. If it does get underneath it, it can damage the paper a tiny bit.
Perfect. And the last one is, what color of red are you using? Like exactly what, I guess what number or what name is it?
So I mean, good question. That's magenta. So when it comes to the primary colors, your primary red is magenta. So it's actually more of a pinkish red. If you're even though like this brand, I've got two different kinds of savoir faire gouache here, and one of them has magenta, and then the other one says primary red. So each one's going to give you a tiny, like if it's more of like a crimson red as your primary red, it's going to give you, you know, a different kind of pink. But, you know, we're not worried about perfectly matching colors to each other here. So any pink that you're satisfied with will work. So what I did was I just took my white gouache and a tiny bit of red, and I, you know, mixed it to get like a really pale pink here. And you know, you might have like 3 or 4 different pinks going. We're going to mix that pink with that blue and get a little bit more of like a red violet going, but I wanted to show you how to make this peachy color first. So if you take a lot of white, I would say like 5 parts white and 1 part red or magenta, and you're going to get a really pale pink there. And then you're going to mix some yellow in with that pink, and that's going to give you this really lovely peachy color. And this peach color is, it's like the glue that holds sunsets together. Sometimes you don't even notice how much of that peachy color shows up in the sunset until you mix it. Like you're looking and you're just seeing pink, but then there's so much of this peach happening here too. So we want to have the peach as a highlight to go on top of our pink. Okay, so I've got my darker pink here. And if you want to go ahead and like mix some of that with your blue to make a little bit of a violet there as well, you're welcome to do that. Or if you want to add a little bit of violet to your pink so that it's just like a really pinkish red violet happening, because there's a lot of pink so in all of these sunset skies. So we'll just bounce around and put that pink everywhere we're seeing, starting with number 1. And it's really more of an orangey red that I'm seeing here, but there's definitely this red violet at the edge as well. And so the trick to clouds here, y'all, is less is more. Every time I teach a class on clouds, which I'm getting kind of a free sneak preview of that class right now. And if you really hang on to the things that I'm telling you, like these little nuggets of tips that I'm giving you on cloud painting, and then just, multiply that by 3 hours of repeating myself a lot, you've got that cloud workshop that I teach. So it's really just a matter of trusting yourself and just laying down these layers of colors. It's really hard to, paint something horizontal in a field of blue that has a, kind of cotton ball quality to it, and not have a viewer look at it and see it as clouds. So, if you're working really hard to make a cloud happen, you've probably gone too far. It really does not take much here. All right, there's not a whole lot of pink in image number 2. It's really more of like that orangey color, and then a lot of yellow and some of that peach. But there is a tiny bit here on the horizon. So we'll do a tiny bit on the horizon. And then there's more of like this purplish pink happening over here. But you see a little bit of pink coming into it. So yeah, these sunsets are really just going to paint themselves when we paint these colors in a way that matches the informational flow of how those colors are stacked on top of each other in the sky. So I'm gonna add a little bit more red to my pink here for number 3, because there's a lot of very vibrant pink happening here. And this one, I'm gonna make my brush stroke, well, it's kind of just the first layer here. We really want a lot of orangey red to happen. I'm just filling in that space with a pink wash really right now. And yeah, I can't say it enough. Less is more. If, you know, it's not happening with the first couple of brush strokes that you lay down, then you're probably judging it really harshly, and take a step back and you'll see it a little differently. Or just let it dry. It always looks different when it's dry. And people have a tendency to you know, just overwork things in the early phases of it, or judge it too quickly. I said not to contaminate my white, and then here I am doing that already to mine. I can always squeeze some more white out. Okay, so just had to make a little bit more of this vibrant pink for number 4 here. So this one, I'm gonna get it kind of thick because the pink is pretty thick. The clouds in number 4 just feels like that pink can go ahead, and they really feel like cotton candy stretched out horizontally there. And the beautiful thing about gouache is that it can be reconstituted. So even if it dries up while you're working somewhere else, you can add some water and re-wet it. And I'm going to go ahead and put my little triangle shaped lake down here at the bottom where it's reflecting that pink sky in number 4. All right, and now that peachy color. Oh my gosh, this class is flying by. I just noticed the time. Okay, so we need lots of this peachy color. We need a lot of it in number 4, especially. I'm gonna make it a little thicker. I've got it really watered down. I hope I made it too orangey. Okay, well, we need a lot of orange in number 3. So how about I just work on a different one? Or actually, number 1 is the one that's really orangey. So since I don't want to let this really orangey color that I just made go to waste, I'm going to go ahead and work on number 1 instead and get those orangey clouds in there. Okay, so we have 20-ish minutes right now. I forgot that we started a little late. So we're just going to keep building up our cloud color layers here. And then when it gets to be about 10 till, we'll bust out the black illustration pens. And if you've got a hair dryer on hand, that could be really helpful if things are still wet, or you know, you can just wait for them to dry and then add that. I may end up adding some of it with onto my other example if my example is too wet by then. All right, so we've got our orange layer going in number 1. Let's see where else. Oh, and then yeah, number 2, we've got a lot of orange happening there, where the sun is nice and bright. So comes off of that pink. And we're just going to try to get it similar to this image. We may not hit it exactly. It's not, maybe not going to look exactly like the sun in this image, but we just want to get close enough. Drive yourself nuts trying to, match sunsets perfectly and match colors perfectly, but we'll get that orange in there and let it kind of stretch up into the blue a little bit, and hopefully it's not gonna turn anything brown up there in the sky. And then we can, if it feels kind of severe right there, because I know it does in mine, this is probably going to need a little finessing. I'm going to make that peach color again, because remember that peach color is the glue that holds our sunset together. So if it looks funny in any spot and like it feels like colors are stacked up on top of each other, just put a little peach in the middle of it and it'll ease that transition, I promise you. It's a little sunset hack for you. That peach color is seriously magical. Okay, so we've got our pale pink and then our little bit of yellow to create that peachy color. It's kind of like a really pale Caucasian skin tone. And yeah, if I put that there where that orange was meeting the blue and was feeling a little weird, that can kind of ease that transition a little bit. And then while I've got that on my paintbrush, I can put it in anywhere where there's like a weird transitional moment happening. And then I believe, yeah, it's number 3 is the one that has a lot of that peachy color. And so this time with number 3, to make it kind of really ethereal up here at the top, I'm gonna put it on and like just leave it there for a second and let it get kind of dry and sticky. And then you can take one of your bigger brushes and kind of scrub into it a little bit, and that'll blur it out, if that makes sense. So took a dry brush and I kind of scrubbed into that a tiny bit, and it kind of does this cool fadey thing. All right, and then put more of the peach color in. And it really does start to feel like just a lot of colors, it's like gets kind of messy here in the middle, but just, trust the process. All paintings go through a bit of a teenager phase where they feel really awkward, like it's not coming together, it's not making any sense. You just gotta trust the process and that it's gonna come together. So now I just got a little bit of red on my brush and mixed it with that peach, so I got more of a direct pink to happen. And so see, when I add just at the very edge of some of these messy blurry colors that I blurred together here, if I do just a little bit of more of a direct pink on top of that, it starts to really feel sunsetty to me. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like that does something. And if the magic is not happening for you when you do that, then go somewhere else and try it somewhere else and then come back. So like we can come up here to number 1 and do a little bit of that. more of a direct, thick pink. Because like I said, we're not trying to make identical images. These sunset studies, it's a study. So it's like loosely based on these images. We're not trying to exactly match these sunsets. We're just trying to make a variety of sunsets here. So if it's feeling like a sunset, you're doing it. There's no need to drive yourself nuts trying to perfectly match everything that you're seeing in all of these images. Right, and then in number 4, same thing. We're going to add our purple in just a second, and that's going to really pull a lot of these together. This one doesn't really have this much pink up here, but I'm just going to put it in anyway. And yeah, if you've got a weird transitional moment, add some of that peach in there to pull it together. And if, you know, one color in particular is like you've got some peach or some pink in there and it just really looked good, you know, feel free to like put a little bit more than you see in the photograph. There's nothing wrong with improvising here. Okay, and while we're waiting for some of these areas to dry, if you wanted to go ahead and mix up some black and do your silhouette of your skylines in there, that is totally fine. A quick way to make a nice rich black is to mix together our darkest blue with brown. So, and I am aware of the time. We are really coming up on the end of the hour here, but I'm realizing I don't have enough time to do the pen on the bottom like I thought I might. So I'm going to go ahead and do it with my paint. Okay, so we've got either a dark umber brown or burnt umber, and then mix that with either your blue, your cobalt blue would be good, or ultramarine blue. And when we mix those together, we'll get a black that's just got a lot of good dimension to it. Sometimes the black that comes out of the tube can feel a little flat, but that blue and that brown will give you a black that's got just a fuller feeling to it. You can see that midnight blue and that brown coming through. So I'm just going to quickly fill in all my bottom areas. And I want to at least show you how I got that the glowy thing to happen in number 2 here. So I'll do that next, and then we'll talk about, I'm gonna try to squeeze it all in. We might go over a couple minutes if that's okay with everybody, and then our YouTube link video will just be a full hour, even though we're going into the 7 o'clock hour a little bit here. So hopefully if everybody can stay an extra 5 minutes, since we started about 5 or 6 minutes late.
That's totally fine on my end. And also, if anyone has to leave, you can always watch the recording later on and catch up on those last few minutes.
There you go. Wonderful. Thank you, Hamida.
No problem.
Okay. So all of our silhouetted landscapes are pretty flat, except for the one in number 2 has a little bit of a building coming into it. And then the one in number 3 has a lot of trees kind of sticking up. So I'm just following the directional path of the landscape that I see there. And I'm putting it on nice and loose right now. You can always slow down and take your time when you're doing this. Especially if you're watching the playback, this is a good time to pause and take your time. All right, and then with the trees that are coming into the frame in number 4, I'm gonna use my pen for that. I might even grab my brush pen. I can't recall if I put the brush pen on the supply list now. I feel like I did. You can definitely do it with the paintbrush as well. Might just be a little bit easier with the pens. And you want your sunset to be totally dry before you do this, which, let me see. I don't know if mine's going to be, but I'm going to go ahead and put, okay, no, wait, I'm not going to do it yet because there's a couple more things I need to do to the sky. All right. So before I forget, let's do this one with the glowy sun in number 2. You're going to want a lot of yellow and a lot of white. So take a little bit of yellow and a lot of white to make that really pale yellow that we're seeing there.
So Adrian, someone's asking about a cloud painting class that you mentioned. Do you know the exact name of the class so I can bring up the link?
Oh, so that is something that I do in my personal practice as a, independent art teacher. I've offered that multiple times over the past several years, and I've done it as an online class. I haven't actually offered it recently, but I do periodically. And if you follow me on Instagram, you can see when I've got a version of that class coming up. And if there's interest, I can definitely put it on my calendar. I always just want, at least 2 or 3 people. Well, usually, probably like 3 or 4 people to sign up in order to hold it. But I know that's not a Michael's thing. It's just meant
Perfect. I've added your Instagram handle in the chat, so
okay, great.
I can find it there.
Yeah, just follow me and I'm sure I'll offer it again at some point. There's always lots of interest, and then sometimes I don't get enough people to sign up for the actual class. So okay, so I put that pale yellow in there, and then for the glowy sun, you really want to use just that direct white as much as possible. So you're going to get like a glob. I'm just trying to get mine wet because it's really dry, but yours is probably not as dried up as mine is for some reason. And I'm using my fine liner brush. So you want to get it really thick on your paintbrush there, and then just glob it in. And try to resist the urge to paint into the middle of it at all. I'm just painting around the edge of it and letting it blur in with that pale yellow color that's nearby, because if you do too much, then you lose the pure white nature of it. And it might be kind of hard to see since it's wet. The light's kind of reflecting off of the wet pile of white that I just added there, but that's it really. And then you can add some more direct yellow near that, because there's kind of like some bright yellow right next to it in the photograph, and that'll make it nice and bright. Okay, and then yeah, the rest of this is just filling in any other colors that you see that you feel like are missing. So if you feel like you need some more purple. We really didn't add too much of that purple. So let me make a tiny bit of purple here, and I'm going to make it nice and direct. And when I say direct, I mean not that much water. So it's putting it on kind of thick here. And then I'm just going to bounce around to where I see that purple and where I feel like that purple will really jazz things up. Like I said, if any color in particular just really, you know, does it for you, then feel free to add more of that. Like there's really not a whole lot of purple or anything in this one, but I've got this big gap where I was going to fill in like peach and white and take my time on that cloud right there, but we have just almost run out of time here. So I'm just filling that in with that rich, vibrant pink, reddish violet. And you can do that with any color. So if it feels like it just needs, you know, some more orange, you can fill in more orange. Feels like it needs more pink, put more pink, whatever kind of pulls your sky together. Okay, and then I wanted to let this one dry, although I realized I didn't put any of the yellow that I wanted to here. I'm going to fill in the rest of the bottom of this sky with yellow. On number 4. And then I'm going to take my pen actually, you know what? I think it's just too wet and I'm going to not do a very good example. I'm going to have to be like a cooking show and just switch to my other example for you guys. This is one of those classes where I have to just admit that I didn't make it as far, but I did, I will say, even though these have not been developed to the extent of my example, we definitely touched on everything here, and I feel like I gave you the tips to get you there. So just everything that we were doing, just keep doing it and building those layers until you get just a thicker version of what we've done there, to where you can't see through any of the colors. But even this one, you know, feels kind of like I can still see through that pink. But once you get the detail of the pen work on there, the line work, it really, you know, the viewer finishes the image for you. So what I was going to continue doing here was just building up those layers. You see how the white is very, very thick, and the you know, kind of fades to that yellow. Once that first layer had dried, I might do that again. And the beautiful thing about gouache is that it does give you that very rich, thick texture. So you can really lay it on nice and thick like that. It really behaves differently than you know, watercolor or acrylic in that way. I mean, it's a little more like acrylic, but it's not. All right, and then so yeah, once everything was dry, I went in with my pens and put these little power lines in there, or the trees, and I used stipple dots, or I used kind of a little scribble sketch to get some of those other shapes that I was seeing on the horizon line there. I did make a little bit of a gray, and I did that building, or kind of did a blurry version of the building, and I did a blurry version of the road, and I did put a little green in here. Definitely when I'm doing these examples, sometimes I get a little carried away and probably take more than an hour or even 2 hours on them. I feel like we covered everything. With the trees, there is a class that I did last year on drawing trees, where I talked about the optimal way to create the illusion of leaves in the distance. And it's thinking more about the mass of the tree, not so much every individual leaf. But when you do put the individual leaves in here, you can do this with the paintbrush or with the pen. Instead of trying to draw every individual one, think about just the shape that the tree is cutting across the sky, like the silhouette of the tree, and then maybe just put like a couple of little dots in here occasionally to feel like some leaves that are coming away from that mass. And you can go into the edge of the water to give yourself an uneven shoreline here as well, or make the tree line stick up in number 3 in that same way. But yeah, I think that covers just about everything in these images. And then when you're done and everything is totally dry, resist the urge to peel off that tape before it is completely dry. If you peel it up when it's wet, you will most certainly rip the paper. So use your blow dryer if you're feeling impatient. Make sure the gouache is totally dry before you peel off that tape, and give yourself that big reveal in the clean edge. And then, you can erase any pencil lines or anything that were visible. I'd love to see where you guys landed on your examples before we go here. So that's always just so rewarding and makes me feel like I did my job. Does anybody want to hold up their gouache studies? I see some gorgeous examples.
We have James. 1 second. There we go.
Oh, that's lovely, James. Yes. Oh, I love how you're just letting that orange sit at the edge of the cloud, but it really creates that optical illusion. That's lovely.
We have Lana.
Oh, Lana, that's so nice. Yes, I love that delicate touch of how you're applying all your colors too. Yeah, just keep going, or leave it nice and light like that if you're satisfied with it. I'll wash, with the washes. That's off to a great start.
And Sarah.
Oh, Sarah, that's nice. Oh, I love how you put those white clouds on top and then a little bit of purple underneath. That's great. Yeah, just follow your instincts with that. Oh, and the stop sign sticking up. Oh, that's so nice. I can see the little blades of grass. Really lovely.
And we have Rebecca.
Very nice. Yes.
And Peggy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's going to be so satisfying when you peel off that tape. I can tell, like, the messier you get on top of the tape, the more that clean line just makes it pop. So make sure you wait for that to dry before you do it.
And Lisa.
Oh, yes. Yeah, see what I mean? You just keep those brush strokes horizontal, even in like the early stages. It's so easily read as sky and water and landscape there.
And I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Swanche.
Ooh, look at number 3, the way you've got that diagonal of those clouds coming in with the pink and purple. That's really nice.
And I see Laura holding hers up. There we go.
I'm loving all those purples and pinks, Laura. Yeah, love that stylized quality so far.
I think that's
All right,
it.
well, thank you so much, everyone. That was really great. Next week's class is going to be a premium class on, it's a figure drawing class on gesture drawing using the brush pens. So hopefully you will join me for that one. You can sign up online on the Michaels website under free and premium online classes. And there's a small fee for that class, but the YouTube link will only be sent after the class. Even if you miss it, you'll still get the recording, but it will not be posted on YouTube like the free classes. So thank you all, and thank you, Jimena. Have a great evening.